Welcome back to Just Jew and Me. I am Donna.
And I am Adam.
And we are so beyond excited about this week's episode because we have a huge guest.
And I've been waiting for this. You've been telling me about this for a few months now, and I've been waiting and so excited.
I almost think that this was like one of the reasons that we were like, let's do this podcast for this reason, to get this guest on this show. Welcome, everyone. Renowned world superstar comedian Daniel Ryan Spaulding.
Hey.
Thanks for having me, you guys.
Oh my God, I can't believe you were in the flesh. Like, I feel like you have been everywhere but Los Angeles. You're finally here in LA.
I know, it's so nice. I haven't been here for 15 years.
You haven't even visited?
No.
Which blows my mind, considering how, just it's Los Angeles. I feel like, you're trying to get out there.
Yeah, well, when I was in my early 20s, I spent time here. Like, I was wanting to be an actor in my early 20s, but then I started doing stand-up, and then I moved to Europe. And so most of my career has been overseas. And then when I did finally get my O1 visa, I moved to New York, and I just got so busy, I didn't end up coming here yet. So yeah, I think the last time I was here was 2009 or 2000.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you're originally from Canada.
Yeah, I was raised in Vancouver.
Vancouver, the city of Ryan Reynolds. That's all I can think of.
There we
now.
go.
Sorry, I have to bring it in.
quick.
I can't help it.
Yeah.
I can't help it.
Canadians, we always know who's Canadian.
Tim Hortons. Tim Hortons, Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah.
Canada, we've got some bones to pick with the Canada anti-Semitism situation.
It's really bad.
It's really bad.
I was praying that Pierre Poilievre would win because in Canada, we don't have the same extreme right that you do in the United States. Like abortion will never be illegal in Canada. Gay marriage will never be. So there's certain culture war issues that will never if we had a conservative government, those things would still be protected. But it's really bad. The liberal government has done nothing to protect Jews, and the cities are just running amok. It's a nightmare.
Yeah, we see the same thing happening in countries like Australia, where you have the same issue of governments just not really caring about the plight of the Jews.
But the difference of Australia, because I don't know if you know Marnie Pearlstein, she was on our show a couple of weeks ago. She's a big advocate in Australia. The difference between Australia and Canada is actually a huge Jewish population. Australia is not, right?
Well, the issue is that Canada at this point, I believe, has Muslims are at 5%.
Okay.
I believe. And so we have to understand it's one thing, there's Western anti-Semitism, but then Eastern anti-Semitism or Arab anti-Semitism. Arab anti-Zionism is something that a lot of people in the West are very uncomfortable addressing because you have to understand the context of Israel and the Middle East, which is that for 1,400 years, Jews were stateless people and Arabs were the conquerors and the colonizers of the Levant. And so the fact that Israel exists and Jews are able to protect themselves and the country was created, that is an affront to Arab dominance. And it's just this thing that's in them that drives them crazy. And a lot of people, if they're coming from countries such as Syria or countries where they've been told their whole lives, Israel is evil, Israel must be destroyed, they have very backwards views and historically inaccurate views and views that are very hateful. And it's very hard for people in the West to understand that vicious hate and anger. And it seems no, they must just be angry about this war that's happening. And so it's it requires someone with balls to be no, this is unacceptable. Israel is our ally. It's a self-defensive war. They have hostages that were kidnapped. October 7th happened. It's this sort of mass hysteria and denialism that is very problematic, and it's very scary for people in the West to have to stand up to.
See, this is what I find so interesting about you is, and I'm sure a lot of our audience as well found your content after October 7th.
That's how I did.
Exactly. And I think you've been such, talking about everything that's happened, not just with Israel, but also anti-Semitism and everything else. And what was shocking for me was to find out you weren't even Jewish. And we talk about this on this podcast, is that allies are probably the most important thing right now for Jews in the world, because we're such a small percentage of the world's population. So it is very interesting to understand how you, and what makes it even more interesting for you is that you're pretty worldly. You've lived all over the world. So you've seen from different perspectives. And I kind of want to understand how you got into this activism.
Well, I didn't know that this was happening. Like, I had always had a really, I always thought Jews were cool. I remember as a little boy, it was right in like the early 90s. I remember watching Schindler's List when I was a little boy. I remember getting very extensive Holocaust education as a child. I remember my grandmother having friends in her neighborhood who were old ladies who had survived the Holocaust. My uncle's wife, my grandmother's brother's wife was German. And like, just my whole life, I was very aware of the Holocaust. I was very aware of anti-Semitism, like just in the fact that we can never allow this to happen again. I honestly thought, okay, like, we've all learned our lesson. No one hates Jews anymore. And then as an adult, I didn't really have that many Jewish friends, but I always admired Jewish writers and comedians. And I grew up
being in the industry, there's so many.
Right.
And I grew up with all that great TV from the 90s and 2000s with all the Jewish sitcoms in New York. And I just always loved that comedy and that way, that humor. And then when I was living in Europe, I became friends with Israelis, and I started visiting Israel. And I had misconceptions about Israel as well. I hadn't gone really deep into the propaganda, but I didn't understand like how the country was laid out and what exactly was going on there. But once I got there, I became friends with Israelis and had like all my best friends are Israeli. And so after October 7th, it was like the shock of the century. I didn't know that all of this was bubbling under the surface of society and festering in academia. And I just know that like the more I learned, the more it just blew my mind, and it still blows my mind. And so I just had to figure out a way to sort of factor it into my life and into my work. And it's really more about Western civilization. Like, it's more about our societies. Like, Israel is going to be fine, I hope. Like, they definitely, like, the country is strong, but it's really like the West is what's going to fall apart. Like, all of these countries, like, as soon as a society turns on its Jews, like, good luck.
Right. Well, so that's something that I find, and I find it so interesting because you always talk about that. Ever since we started talking, you and I as friends, you always brought up, it's not about Israel. It is, of course, about Israel and the Jews, but it's about the Western civilization. Explain that to people, how you see it so clearly as like a through line. That it starts with the Jews, but actually you're seeing this kind of like takedown of America or like the Western civilization when you see all this kind of chaos and the screaming and the protesting, etc.
So if you can imagine, like, when you're an evil genius who wants to take over a country or the world, there's a toolbox. And in the toolbox, throughout history, there's always this toolbox, okay? In the toolbox, there's a flag. In the toolbox, there's a costume. In the toolbox, there's anti-Semitism. There's Jew hatred. Because Jews have been around for, over 3,000 years. They've survived all these different situations, all over the world. Usually when a society is about to fall apart, that's an indication of something wrong in that society or that culture, is Jew hatred, anti-Semitism, okay? So you have to look at who where does the anti-Semitism come from? Who wants to destroy the Jews, okay? And so we have sort of different forces at play. You have Islamists, because they want to destroy Israel. They want to, there's the Muslim Brotherhood based out of Egypt, a Sunni extremist group. And there's also the Islamic Republic based in Iran. You have like two different Islamist extremist groups, both sort of working in tandem to destroy the state of Israel, because Israel is a Western Judeo-Christian majority society, okay? They want an Islamic caliphate, all right? So that's their motivation. And they're not going to stop at Israel. Like, it will also be Europe. Like, Europe might fall before Israel at this point because everyone's asleep there. So you have like a takeover of Islam happening.
Siesta, you know.
So,
Well,
siesta.
yeah, and I'm curious about that. We'll go back to that in a second.
That's how they use anti-Semitism. And it's sort of we can go into that, but that's that anti-Semitism. And then you also have communists. Now, we don't usually think about communists because, you know, especially in terms of being in the West, a lot of us are leftists, a lot of us are liberal, we value enlightenment, but communists have an agenda to detach us from religion. And Israel is the Holy Land. It's where Jesus walked. It is the basis of Judeo-Christian society. All of the archaeology is there. All of these churches are there. This hundreds of years of Jewish and Christian history is in Israel. So communists would want to detach people from Israel because they want the state to determine what is right and wrong. They want the state to be able to dictate how your child is raised, how your child thinks, and what sort of morals they have. That's sort of the ideology of this sort of neo-Marxist, queer, communist thing that the left has sort of veered into the past 5 or 10 years.
That we've seen a lot.
When people say the left has gone too far, it's communism.
Right.
It's all of these sort of Soviet ideas that have festered in academia. So a lot of the left-wing anti-Semitism is coming from these sort of communist ideologies, that it's not just about Jews and not just about Israel, but about a hatred of religion, a hatred of morality. And so there's those two forces. And then I would say the right-wing anti-Semitism would be isolationism. And because Jews have a very good sense of morals and are always championing other minorities, and they're very like all about justice, even sometimes to their own detriment, I think that people who are maybe right-wing, like far-right white nationalists, like isolationists, people like that would be against Israel or against Jews because of their passion for social justice and equality. And so I think that right now the right-wing anti-Semitism is there, but it's not as big a danger as the left-wing.
It's not as vocal right now.
The partnership between the Islamists and the communists.
Yes.
Wow. So it's really coming at us from all sides.
Right. It's this balance. Like, and I think that gay men and Jews are very good allies, because when a society is in extremism, we get hate from both the far right and the far left.
Gay men and Jews.
Yeah, because we're successful minorities. And we can sort of appeal, we can communicate, we're good unifiers.
Yeah, but what comes with that is the negative of we get blamed for so much of everything.
Yeah.
And I think there's always a lot of blaming so many, like if you're looking at the extreme right, blaming the downfall of society on gay men or just the LGBT community.
Yeah, I think that the last time we saw this level of evil was during the AIDS epidemic, with people celebrating the death of gay men and thinking that they deserved it. And I think that's the closest thing to, like, when I think about a society in moral collapse, I think that was sort of the closest thing to now.
What's interesting is in the last few months, well, the last 15, 16 months or whatever since October 7th. Because I grew up a lot like you in the sense that obviously I was Jewish, growing up Jewish, but very similar to you in watching Schindler's List. My grandparents, Adam's grandparents, they all died at this point, Holocaust survivors, tattooed on their arms, speaking to us about their experiences, very much in generational trauma, you know, growing up not expecting it to ever happen to us, but like always looking behind our backs, not like actually thinking it was going to happen, but like kind of deep down thinking, never be too confident, but really confidently feeling like that's a far gone past. Going to Yad Vashem, which is the Holocaust Museum, you know, every time we went to Israel and seeing all the books and the names and everything and just being like, look at the history. Never feeling like there was anything to ever worry about. Going to see Schindler's List and saying like, look at the past, look at the past, look at the past. So very similar to you, but never thinking that this was something we would deal with again. What in the last few months, obviously this blew our minds, but Adam and I saw October 8th, the documentary recently.
Yeah.
Have you seen it?
I haven't yet.
Okay, you should.
Yeah.
But it's really about the festering academia and everything. And then, you know, just recently Douglas Murray talking about this on Joe Rogan, and that whole conversation about the celebrations of the downfall of what happened on October 7th, the parades and the excitement, and the professor being like, we're exhilarated through everything. That's what you're talking about. It's like the joy of the death.
Yeah. Well, I think that like it crept up in academia, like these lies and an inversion of reality and an inversion of cause and effect, and also just the hatred of the fact that Jews have created like a society and are able to defend themselves. And there's definitely like lots of lies and propaganda, but it's been filtered through academia, through institutions, and we were all just sort of asleep and not really realizing that it was happening, or maybe we realized it, but no one was able to sort of stop it or correct it.
So it's funny you say that, because like even my dad, he was born in the Czech Republic, came here a year later through Ellis Island, same type of thing. He would always tell me that this is what's happening in academia, and I would never listen to it, right? He grew up with parents that survived the Holocaust, and he could understand that. But it's interesting you put it that way, because it's true. When we think about the changes, how academia has kind of gone in that direction, I never believed it. I never did.
Right.
And when I went to college, never believed it. After college, never believed it.
But so it's so funny, because I have a girlfriend who works in the college system in the sense that she helps like college admissions. She helps high school kids get into college. She went to maybe USC or UCLA. She went to like a very prestigious university, one of them or whatever. And I think UCLA.
Oh, that's not.
Is that a prestigious? Okay,
no,
sorry, because you're a USC guy.
True.
But when this whole thing started, and she's Jewish, but I wouldn't say that she's like a very gung-ho, like big, like us, like very pro. But she doesn't take it that seriously, this whole drama, because she's like, oh, it's always been like this on college campuses. And I went to UC Santa Barbara, and I do remember there being like a light level of anti-Semitism in the college world, but nothing like this. So I'm like, what do you mean it's always been like this? It has not always been like this.
No,
it's because it's happened so slowly, like over the past 20 years, that the professors have already gone through the anti-Israel.
They grew up under it.
Yeah, so it's already like the second generation.
Which makes sense.
So all of and then the funding of Qatar as well. They get so much money from Qatar, and they've hired so many professors who are collaborating with Muslim Brotherhood or who are just raging anti-Semites and are teaching a completely distorted version of history and jihadist propaganda to their students. So the administration and the leadership are already subverted. So that's why...
Follow the money.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What do you... Okay, so I'm trying to remember. Well, actually not trying to. I remember exactly what video I saw of yours that made me like catch onto you. You were living in Europe where?
I was in Berlin.
You were in Berlin. Now, Berlin, okay, I don't know geography very well. Berlin is in Germany, correct?
Yes, the capital of Germany, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. I knew I was going to look like an idiot. Well, listen, Dave Portnoy the other day said Auschwitz was in Germany too, so I don't feel safe.
I agree. That was weird.
Okay, but you know what? A lot of people actually think Auschwitz is in Germany. Okay, people have made that mistake many times. It's in Poland. Well, because people think Germany concentration camps.
Yeah.
Aren't there concentration camps in Germany?
Yes, there are.
Yeah, but Auschwitz is in Poland. He meant well. He was angry. Yeah. So we can talk about that story in just a second. But you were in Berlin. I'll never forget it. Was it in October that you made that video, or November?
It was 5 days after.
Oh, it was right away. Daniel's Instagram, you really went viral off these like walking and talking videos, and he still does them.
Yeah.
But it was this walking and talking video to the purple-haired girls that are supporting Hamas.
Yeah.
In the days after October 7th. Yeah. And these were in the days before Israel really even fought back. And we were talking about the fact that, and I just even the other day, you know, you get memories on Instagram or whatever where your old pictures. I would screen record a lot of DMs I would get in October. Right after where people would yell at me and say Israel is causing a genocide on October 12th. I'm like, Israel is causing a genocide already? Yeah. How did we do that so fast? We're so good.
Awesome. We're so good at it.
Like literally, they already had Canva images about Israel creating genocide.
They had been prepared and primed for years.
It is interesting because October 7th they talk about that. Sorry, October 8th,
the documentary.
Yeah. They talk about how they were primed and ready to go the second something like this happened.
Yeah, exactly.
So you do this walk and talk, and you're talking about it, and the last sentence was it was
if you want
free Palestine from Hamas.
If you want to free Palestine from Hamas.
I said, who the hell is this guy? I could tell immediately you're my kind of person.
Yeah.
I could tell that you're a gay man. I was like, I love him already because I love my gay men. And I just knew it. I was like, there's something so fucking genius about this guy. You were so viral. I think you got millions and millions and millions of views on that.
Yeah, that one,
I downloaded it and I shared it on my feed. I tagged you, of course, but I was like, this guy, because if I said it, I got hate. If you say it, I was like, let him say it for me. You know what I mean? I still got hate.
I kind of had to take one for the team.
I think so many people appreciated it.
Yeah. What was the reaction to that?
That was your first really big.
Yeah, it was. Well, so I'd been planning for a year to move to New York.
Okay.
And so my move date was October 16th. Oh. I'd been planning for a year. I lost a ton of weight.
Oh my God, that's
right. I had gotten plastic surgery. I was going to start a new life for myself in New York. And I was just wrapping up a European tour of my show. My show was all about my weight loss and everything. I put up the show because I'm doing a new show now, and a lot of the material isn't relevant anymore. So it's on YouTube. I have one comedy special when I was 400 pounds and one when I was 200 pounds.
Jeez.
Yeah. So they're both on my YouTube channel.
Like watching you when you're 400 pounds looks like literally it's a different person.
I know. It's crazy.
It's wild to see that it's the same person.
So I had just wrapped up a European tour. I was in Israel doing my show at the National Theater on September 30th. And then I went to do some shows in the UK that weekend when October 7th happened. And I was in London doing a matinee, and my sister was in London. And after my show, we went out, and she was telling me that there was something happening in Israel. And it was all like kind of, I didn't really know exactly what, it was all kind of like confusing. I didn't really know what was going on. And then when I got back to Berlin, I saw what was happening, and all my friends were sharing content. So I started sharing content, and it was like, I was very weirded out by the reaction and the silence, and there was sort of a silence, and then there was I started seeing, I think the first thing I saw was a friend of mine post, Palestine has the right to defend itself.
Immediately, I saw that stuff
and I asked him, what are you
against the Nakba or whatever it's called, like against 1948?
I was like, what are you talking about? Do you understand what's happened? And he said something along the lines of, this is nothing that Israel doesn't do to them all the time.
It didn't start on October 7th.
I love that kind of rhetoric.
And then I saw these lesbians in Brooklyn post something. These lesbians that I knew.
That you know.
Oh, your actual friends.
Well, people that I knew.
Like the general lesbian community
and
in Brooklyn.
then I was like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
What the fuck is this?
Yeah.
I don't understand what's happening. These lesbians would be fucking killed by
In 2 seconds.
They're jihadists. They're
2
Islamists.
seconds.
Why are you on the side of Islamists? They're jihadists. They're terrorists. Why don't you know they're terrorists? They want Sharia law. They want to free Palestine of the Jews.
Yes.
Why are you on the side of the terrorists? So I did that first. I was just so pissed off, and I did that first video, and then it went kind of went viral. And then I did another one. I left Berlin and I did a show in Amsterdam, and I did one 2 days later, and then that kind of went viral. And it was all, and then it was all kind of like at one point they got hit with a bot attack. So it was just thousands and thousands of Palestinian flags hit the video to try to screw up the algorithm.
Yeah.
So I had to put a stop on the comments, and it was all just craziness. But I was moving, and I ended up by October 16th, I was in New York. So those 5 days were all sort of a blur to me. But when I did the first 2 videos, but then I ended up in New York, and then I met all of these Jewish comedians and people in the Israel advocacy space. And I basically kind of started this new life in New York, and I got thrown into, I had to learn so much because I didn't know that there was 20 years of this anti-Israel brainwashing and propaganda and Jew hatred and festering and things like lies online and all these documentaries. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe this has all been happening.
And imagine being thrown into a city like New York where you have schools like Columbia and NYU, where all of this was really taking off.
Yeah, it was I think that for me, it felt like, oh my God, the world has gone evil and only I can see it. And everyone's trying to kill the Jews. I got to do something. Yeah. So really, it felt to me like I was living in Weimar Republic in the 1930s. Yeah. It must have been, what it must have felt like just to be watching the encampments and the Palestinian flags everywhere. I was 5 blocks away from NYU.
Oh my God.
It was complete insanity. And so I tried all sorts of different strategies to combat it, but some were more effective than others. But I'm hoping that people start to wake up because they don't seem, the cultural change doesn't seem to be happening yet.
Well, so this is where I start to get very, very overwhelmed. I'm a mom. So is Adam. He's a mom. He's a mom.
Okay, fine.
Well, he's a dad, but he's a mom and by heart.
It's very true.
No, but we're parents, obviously, and raising Jewish kids. I can get into a spiral in my brain. And you and I have DM'd about this for months about what's happening in our world.
Yeah.
But I'll get into spirals sometimes. I'll have days, just a couple days ago, I had days when, with the Dave Portnoy F the Jews sign at a fucking club, where in Philadelphia, where 20-year-olds are partying it up, these clearly liberal, cool college kid looking kids at Temple University, not fringe group, purple haired lesbian nose rings.
Yeah.
Just normal kids.
Yeah.
And, this is the shit that really can send me to a very scared place.
I know.
Because it's one thing when you see the big encampments with the signs and stuff, you can tell your kids or you yourself as a Jew, you can be stay away from that group. That's not our people. We're not going to be. But I, myself, my kids, you could be at a place like that where all of a sudden it can turn on you that in a heartbeat. Where all of a sudden my Magen David that I'm wearing, could be a sign of oh, danger. This is the stuff that overwhelms me. And you just said this culture shift, it doesn't seem to be changing. Every day I keep thinking to myself, will people wake up? We all are speaking and we're trying to do these things. We're trying to just normalize Judaism as just or just not even just Judaism as a religion, just like the fact that Jewish, Israel, all of it, like, is not the enemy, is not as bad of an enemy as like the world has made it out to seem. But the voices that are so anti are so loud.
Yeah.
You know, with these podcasters, and I hate to say it, it's like disgusting, but like the Candace Owens of the world.
Yeah.
And then now Theo Vaughn all of a sudden is the Israel expert. Did you hear this? Like all of a sudden Theo Vaughn, who used to be on Road Rules Challenge, is talking about how Israel's owning this. He's like, I think Israel's owning society.
Yeah.
Tucker Carlson.
It's hard, and it's hard to know, like, are they being paid by Qatar? Like, have they just gotten a check for $5 million?
I don't think so. I think they know.
Or is it a mind virus?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think it's a mind virus. I think it's, I literally think it's a virus, and I think that they know where the audience lies.
Yeah.
Because it's like, for example, if not that I hate to do this, I have to bring up Blake Lively, but I believe Blake Lively is insane and she's wrong in that case. But if I decided that I didn't think Blake Lively was wrong, and I all of a sudden wanted to come out there and say, like, Blake Lively's right, I would probably not get as many views.
Right.
You know, if you go against the unpopular opinion, if you go like on the unpopular opinion, you're not. That's why every time I talk about this kind of stuff on my other show, I get hate, I get unfollows, I get bad reviews. So of course they're going to go like with the popular opinion. But do they really believe that?
That's what I don't understand. Are they just like, it's a very confusing thing. Like, they must know. They certainly must know on some level. But what is that?
Know what?
That Hamas are terrorists.
Or do they not like read a book? Or do they not? I mean, what are they watching online? This is what I want to know. What do their feeds look like?
This is what, and Jonah Platt was talking about this, and was that,
you know, Jonah, right?
Yeah, I met him recently. Yeah.
Okay, from Being Jewish, that podcast. Yeah.
So the algorithm is so different for so many different people. For us, we see everything about Judaism, about Israel, about pro-Israel, this and that. And we see all the negative things that happen at these encampments or at protests. But if people aren't seeing it in their feed, those types of things, and they're only seeing anti-Israel things in their feed, that's what they're going to start believing in. Even stuff that they miss. Like, I remember I was talking, my friend Alana was talking to a couple of our friends, my friend Seth and his wife Callie. Seth is Jewish, Callie is not. And this was right after the Bibas kids came back in coffins. Yeah. And Alana, who's Jewish, said something to Callie. It's like, I can't believe, like, it's been a terrible week. You know, the Bibas twins, and she's like, or Bibas kids. And Callie's like, who are you talking about?
No, come on.
It's like the Bibas kids.
And it was all over my feed. It's all I saw for an entire week.
Kind of a light bulb went off, though. It was like, okay, they're completely different feeds that people are seeing. And I'm not saying it's right that they're believing in what they're seeing. But
they're not aware.
When you're constantly, when that content is forced into your brain and you're not seeing anything else.
Yeah. Well, that was, I think, like, when I started making fun out of celebrities who'd been indoctrinated, that was like, it was pretty effective because it became like this thing where people were gossiping about it, and they were like, oh my God, do you know how stupid Alana Glazer is? Do you know how backward, like, she doesn't know about Iran. Right. Like, it became this thing where I was sort of able to reach people out of their echo chambers through gossip and through like celebrity gossip. That was sort of like the strategy that I was going for. And so you had these people like Cynthia Nixon and Susan Sarandon.
The soggy people.
Yeah, the soggy people. These these old, weird, like has-been actresses, basically.
Deborah Winger.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, she
ashamed to be from Israel.
So I think that like we have all different sorts of strategies that we can do to try to get people into to spread this knowledge, but it's just it's very. I don't think that people haven't realized. I think people are in denial about how serious a problem this is and how primed these kids are, because this shit is in elementary school.
Yep.
They in textbooks in middle school or elementary school, it will say that in 1948, Europeans felt bad about the Holocaust, so they took land from Palestinians and gave it to the Jews. And that's right away the first thing that they've heard about Israel, is that the Jews took land from Palestinians.
From the poor Palestinians.
It's very hard for a little child to hear something and to get that information as children. And then, 5-10 years later, this war happens. There's absolutely no information about October 7th. It's completely suppressed. And then boom, there's this massive propaganda campaign, stop the genocide, resist the genocide. And they've already been indoctrinated against Israel since they're 10 years old. So the priming has already been there. The Muslim Brotherhood and these communists, all these people that want to take down Israel have gotten into the schools.
Yeah, and it's the Students for Justice, SJP.
Yes.
They're a very, very powerful group. Apparently, I've talked to a lot of people who've worked in college campuses or have gone to school. A lot of my followers have DM'd me that they're a little bit younger. They're like in their 20s, late 20s. And they went to school with SJP, and they said they're incredibly strong presences on college campuses.
Yeah. It all comes from American Muslims for Palestine, AMP, and CARE. These are both sort of shell companies for Muslim Brotherhood and Islamic Republic. And then they started student organizations, Students for Justice in Palestine, and also Jewish Voices for Peace.
Which
they're infiltrated by Muslim Brotherhood.
Okay, so two things. That whole idea, because this is the biggest frustration, is when we get, anytime we say anything about anything, the response is, there are so many Jews who disagree with you. There are Jews that fight whatever anything Israel's doing. There are Jews that are against it. So they list Jewish Voices for Peace.
Yeah.
They list Alana Glazer. They list Hannah Einbinder.
Your favorite.
Yeah.
They list people like that, right?
Yeah.
What can we say about that? Because obviously that is not in any way Jews that I align with whatsoever.
Right. So this is sort of a problem that comes from, it starts in Israel. Basically, Islamists target the left. So there's a number of different far left Israelis that sort of get hooked into Muslim Brotherhood propaganda, and it usually starts with peace initiatives. So Palestinians who have an agenda will sort of partner with different far left Israeli activists, and through sort of a grooming process will get them to turn against Israel. People that are maybe really, really critical of the Israeli government or something like that. They'll basically sort of groom them to the point where they believe all the Palestinian propaganda and the inversion of cause and effect. And they're so anti-Netanyahu in the same way there are people who are, I hate to say the Trump derangement syndrome.
No, but exactly.
But there is a point where you have to look at policy, and you can't just hate the leader so much that you can't look at the policy. The reason there is...
Oh,
so
here's a notebook. I was waiting for it.
So Judea and Samaria is an area here that was won in a war with Jordan. Okay, so it's disputed territory. There's I think about 2 million Palestinians there. The reason Israel couldn't absorb all of them as Israeli citizens, first of all, they didn't want to, but also because they're jihadists, they're Islamists. There are terrorist regimes within these territories. So the Oslo Accords basically laid out a way to divide the land. The land is actually little enclaves. So
and when were the Oslo Accords?
In 1995. So basically, they have some sovereignty over this land to try to build their own nation. The idea of it being a military occupation is more so, let's figure out how to divide the land so that one day you can have your own state or something like that. But so this is sort of how it's laid out in little enclaves. And so one zone they're in complete control of. The Palestinian Authority controls administration and security. And then Zone B, some of the enclaves are administratively controlled by Palestinian Authority, and security is Israel, and there's military presence there to prevent the terrorist regimes that are in there from coming into Israel and killing everyone. So, and they agreed to this arrangement. So the fact that there's an occupation, it's an occupation to determine how the land is divided so that potentially they could have their own state. But they keep rejecting every peace deal and every peace deal that they've been offered. That's why they haven't been able to build a nation, because they don't want it. They just want to destroy Israel because they're Islamists. They don't want a Jewish state. They want Palestine to be free from the river to the sea. They want it to be free of Jews. They want to kill all the Jews.
They don't want a two-state solution.
No,
they don't want that.
We project onto them that they, because
our ideas of peace.
Because it's so irrational.
Yeah.
When you're Jewish or Christian, you're raised in an Enlightenment society or a Western society. You can't imagine that people would just hate you for no reason.
Just because you exist.
So these far left Israeli activists think that the reason why they're committing terrorism is because of the military occupation. But if there was a military occupation or not, they would still want to kill everyone in Israel because they want to kill all the Jews.
There's a reason why 9/11 happened.
It's radical Islam. It's Islamism.
There's a reason why 9/11 happened. They do not like Jews. They do not like Western civilization.
Yeah.
They want to get rid of it and make a statement.
Yes.
It has nothing to do with any type of whatever occupation. It has everything to do with just who we are.
Yeah.
So at what point do these radical Jewish voices for peace or the super left Jews or Israelis, and I know which ones you're talking about, the ones that are so anti-Netanyahu or so pro-peace. And that's honestly, I think, why so many young college students think that they're doing the right thing when they're pro-Palestine and they're fighting for peace, because they truly feel in their heart, we just don't want war. We don't want the killing of children. By the way, neither do we.
Yeah, exactly.
Neither do we. None of us want the killing of children. None of us want war. We just want to be safe.
Yeah.
We just don't want to be killed. So they all believe that they're doing the right thing. But at what point are they going to be able to see this reality? How can they wake up to this? Like, how come they can't see it?
It's never talked about. No one ever explains it.
They're just not watching your Instagram.
I guess not. But also, like, so basically it's this is 20 years of an inversion of cause and effect. It's 20 years of, writers people like Ta-Nehisi Coates going to like Israel for a week and going to the West Bank and having some Palestinian tour guide basically just like lie and lie and lie, because there's also this thing called taqiyya, which is under Islam, you can lie if it furthers the goal of Islamic supremacy. So a lot of this stuff is just a distortion of
propaganda.
It's a distortion of timelines. It's a distortion of reality. Like the Nakba again, like that, like Israel initially was like the tiniest, like the land in the partition plan to create Israel was like this tiny little shitty piece of land that was covered in malaria. That was like, it was horrible.
Right.
And
what year was this? 1948?
This was 1948. And all the Arab countries decided, you know what, we got to kill all these Jews. Like, we don't want a Jewish state. So they told the different Arabs in the region, like, we're going to kill all the Jews. Like, could you leave so that we can like have a better chance of killing the Jews? So some of the Arabs left and some of them stayed. And then they basically like all the Arab neighbors tried to like kill all the Jews. Somehow everyone there, all these like Holocaust survivors, and like they managed to like win that war. It was like a miracle. And then they got more land. Israel has only gotten land based on legal land purchase or land that they got out of wars where they were attacked, right? And so as a result, the Arabs that left couldn't come back to their homes because they were traitors who were like basically allowing all the Jews to be, killed in an attempted genocide. And then certain people had to leave because they were in positions where they were all like densely populated, and for strategic reasons, they would come and attack again. So some people were displaced, but it was a war that was started by the Arab League. And initially, the term Nakba, the catastrophe, was the catastrophe that they didn't kill all the Jews. It was an attempted genocide of the Jewish people and the destruction of the state of Israel that didn't happen. That was the Nakba. But slowly over time, they've distorted the entire story to make it seem like it was this horrible thing that Israel did to take over the land. Like it's a complete inversion of reality. So there's so many things like this where there's a distortion in timeline, a distortion in cause and effect. The same way people think that they commit terrorism because of the security measures and the checkpoints. No, it's a separate territory. There's checkpoints and security measures because ISIS is there.
Right.
Because like if ISIS or Al-Qaeda took over New Jersey and people in New Jersey wanted to come into Manhattan to work in Manhattan, there would be a checkpoint to check them through security and ask them about themselves and find out, are you going to blow up people in Manhattan because ISIS is in charge of New Jersey? So yeah, you can come in and work in Manhattan, but we're going to have to find out if you're a terrorist because there are terrorist regimes in New Jersey. But it's so hard for people in the West who have never who can't imagine being under the threat of jihadist terrorism. They just can't imagine it.
No, because all they do is they see the video footage of the rubble. That's all it is. They see the rubble and they see the children.
And what's so amazing to me about you is that you can put this so eloquently.
It's so smart.
And it's so easy for you to put these facts out there. The problem is that even if you're thinking about Jews who support the cause, support Israel and support, anti-Semitism, they can't even get into this much detail,
right?
And get into understanding all of that. So when you're dealing with that much adversity, when you have so many people who won't even sit there and listen,
right?
It becomes very, very difficult to get this point across. And it's, maybe we just need to kind of chisel away at it, one person at a time, two people at a time, to really get that message across.
I don't know what it's going to take. I think that we just have to. I think I asked Enoch Vilf about it. She's brilliant. She's a really great writer and scholar, and she said that eventually their movement will be so chaotic and destructive and off-putting that anyone with any sense of morality and really actually wanting to understand it will have to look at other sources. Right. And then there are books and there's documentaries and the truth is there. They just have to understand it.
I mean, unfortunately, there's going to be versions of the truth. So it depends where you look, because of course, the Oscar movie, No Other Land, is their version of the truth. And we all know. Well,
that was basically what I was talking about.
Yeah.
These far left Israelis who partner with a Palestinian, but it's all it's all propaganda.
Exactly. But they can say, but it's a documentary. Look, we're watching video. Right. And we're seeing all this. And we can talk about all that, all the fake Hollywood that we all know to be true.
Yeah.
I think that they're going to turn on themselves. I think that, I just saw a video the other day, 2 days ago, where AOC was speaking at some sort of an event. AOC, someone who's quite left and quite anti-Israel, I think.
Yeah.
And someone spoke up and yelled at her about the war.
I saw all these comments today. I saw all these comments today about AOC and how now she's funded by AIPAC. How she's funded by AIPAC. And I'm like, where the hell did they get? She's a war criminal.
Well, that's definitely not possible. That's not true.
I know, but where are these people getting these thoughts?
Well, what's interesting is that every single person that is in the president, in the government, just because the U.S. supports Israel, every single person in the U.S. government is pro-genocide, according to these people.
Yeah, they've lost it. So the reason that we're allies with Israel is because Israel, in terms of like we have the technology, innovation, and also national security. Like, there are people called jihadists, and there are terrorist regimes. Like, do you know how many terrorist regimes Israel foiled and stopped because of the intel of being in that region? And it has nothing to do with, like, Israel was not created as like this Zionist entity proxy state. It was created. There's completely different reasons as to why Israel came to be. I can explain that, but it's just because they have Western values. It's a Judeo-Christian society. It's a Jewish nation, but if Lebanon hadn't been taken over by Islamists and Israel didn't exist in a hypothetical world, and Lebanon was the only Christian nation, then Lebanon would be our biggest ally in the Middle East because they have Western values. They're not jihadists. They're not Islamists. We can trust them.
It's incredibly advanced. I mean, the city of Haifa on its own has all the big technological companies, like Google and Apple, and, you know, Waze was developed in Israel. Riverside, which is a big podcasting software that I use, was developed in Israel. Not to mention, June is a huge gay pride month in Israel. It's very, very celebratory of gay.
But why you medicine, technology.
Why do you love Israel so much? Now that I think about
hot
it,
Israeli man.
You were just in Israel and you were talking about all those men.
I was there for 2 months.
Oh, tell me more about
that. So hot.
You love yourself those hot Israelis.
Well, yeah, because they all have to go to the army, so they're all hot. Because all the terrorists want to kill them, so they have to go to the army, and they're so strong. And they're so nice because they had nice Jewish mothers raising them, and they know how to cook.
Yes.
And they're all muscly and sexy.
Listen, I've never personally been into Israeli men, but I will say Israeli men are hot.
They're so nice.
They are, and they're good people.
They're good people.
And they're all raised by Jewish mothers.
Exactly.
There you go. But let me tell you, this whole idea about, like, they go to the army. Oh my God, IDF.
It's a defense army.
I know.
The army wouldn't be there if there weren't all these terrorist regimes wanting to kill them all.
And by the way,
they're
there's
under
nothing...
threat of annihilation. Like, if Iran develops a nuclear bomb, they're going to drop it on Israel and kill millions of people. Like, that is literally their plan.
Yep.
So you have all these, you know, idiot podcasters being like, why should we, all the dude bro podcasters be like, why should we go to war in Iran? I'm like, do you want like 10 million people to be killed in a nuclear holocaust? Because that's literally what I think you want. So and we wouldn't be like, you, Tim Dillon, are not going to be putting on a uniform and going to war in Iran. Like, all we need to do is blow up their nuclear sites. Like, the people of Iran do not want to be living under this regime. Like, Persian people are brilliant, wonderful, fabulous people. Like, no one wants to live under this terror.
No, I know. It's like something is happening in the last couple of years. Everything is upside down.
Yeah, well, this is what, like, another thing is that, like, there's sort of this idea of, like, that there's a world, like a utopia out there without the Jew. Like, without the Jew, we can have this, like, perfect, like, utopia world. And, like, Palestine is going to be, like, this bohemian paradise where lesbians can, like, have scarves and do spoken word poetry and eat tabbouleh and belly dance. And it's just, like, they're all going to be, like, in these, like, fabulous bohemian chic, like, desert Lesbo fabulous world, you know? And this is what, like, it's completely irrational, but it's a Nazi ideology. It's the final solution. It's free Palestine is a reincarnation of the final solution. That is what it means. It's a Nazi ideology. It means a world without Israel. If you think Israel shouldn't exist, that's the first step to saying that Jews shouldn't exist.
Of course.
So all of these, like, asshole podcasters, all these people who, you know, built their little bullshit, careers, out of being talking heads and spewing hate. They see that like the idea of like this evil idea is within reach, and they're turning society against the Jews. And there's something about it, I think, that's like exciting for them. I think Joe Rogan and Tim Dillon and Candace Owens, and I think all of them, they're loving life right now because they're so close to killing the Jews.
And they're getting paid to do that.
Tucker Carlson, all of them. They're sickos.
Yeah, they're
sickos.
And then what's confusing is like this Dave Smith guy who went up against Douglas Murray, whose grandparents were Holocaust survivors.
On Joe Rogan's.
On Joe Rogan, who went up against Douglas Murray. His grandparents were Holocaust survivors. He is Jewish, and he is anti-Israel.
Well, they've turned
a
lot of the Jewish diaspora against Israel because of the lies about the country, because of the inversion of cause and effect, because like they don't actually know. If you haven't actually been there, if you're never willing to talk to an IDF soldier, if you're not willing, like if you want to live, like it's very scary to be around anti-Semitism. Like even for me as like not a Jewish person, but someone who's advocating for Israel, when you're around someone who's like in that state of Jew hate, they're psycho.
It's very
like,
scary.
Like genocide, like they're nuts. You can't talk to them. They won't absorb information. They can't absorb facts. They can't absorb, like you can literally explain this shit with maps.
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter because they're psycho. So if you have a loved one in your life or someone you care about, or you get hooked into like Al Jazeera or like all this, like people like Hassan Piker, all these like raging, or Cenk Uygur, all these raging, crazy Jew hater people who listen to, watch Al Jazeera, Eye on the Middle East, or these Qatari news agencies where everything is framed and manipulated and distorted, and you genuinely believe all this shit, and then they put that on you as a Jew, and they say to you, these are your people, is this what you stand for? You're going to be radicalized in the other way because you if you're someone who has good values, you don't want to be associated with that. So in his mind, I guess this is like either he genuinely thinks that, or he doesn't care, or he just like he wants to avoid experiencing anti-Semitism. A lot of it comes to that. Yeah.
So what's next? What's next for us as Jews, for you? What are we going to do?
I think we have to build allies. We have to build alliances. And we have to educate ourselves. There has to be some sort of change in Hollywood. Yeah. Like, I think there has to be, like, we have to have a TV show that's set in Israel, or like we have to show what Israel's like and get people to like Israel.
The closest thing I saw the other day, my son Dylan turned on Everybody Feed Phil, or he's the creator of Everybody Loves Raymond, whatever. So Somebody Feed Phil, that's the name of the show. It's on Netflix. It's the creator, and he's a food guy, and he goes around he's like, Anthony Bourdain, but the comedy version.
Yeah, right.
And he goes to Jerusalem. Now, this is before 2000, this is before 10/7, but he goes all over Israel, and he's in Jerusalem, Tel Aviv, whatever. And I'm like, we need more of this. Yeah. It shows the culture of Israel. It shows such lovely, fun stuff. I wish that there was more. A reality show set in Israel.
There has to
Real Housewives of Tel Aviv.
Yeah, but it's so funny too, because it's like people project like a story onto Israel that isn't true, and they're living in a delusion, and they're just really destroying their own communities and their own happiness. And people in Israel are just living their lives.
I know.
Like everyone is like building, starting businesses, and there's tram lines being built. And Israel is like the future, especially if they destroy the Islamic Republic and the Abraham Accords expand and Israel's at peace with Iran. Like, people will be learning Hebrew and Farsi the same way they were learning Chinese 10 years ago. But everything is completely inverted.
I know.
These kids are so like it's a whacked out time in history.
When I look at, again, more comments on social media posts where somebody says something anti-Israel, and then a pro-Israel person's like, "Oh, we'll send you to Gaza, send you to Gaza." I'm like, no, send that person to Israel.
Yeah.
Send that person to Israel so they can actually experience what an amazing country it is.
Yeah.
I'd rather them learn than to go through the bullshit they would go through going to Gaza. So I mean, obviously we can't all do that, but the idea of experiencing what that is very prime to people understanding.
Yeah. The argument of send them to Gaza is not, no one has ever changed their mind and been like, okay, I like Israel now because of that argument.
Right.
The reason they think, do you know the reason why like Hannah Einbender and all these people like are against Israel and believe all this crap?
Why?
It's because like, well, for her, in her case, they basically infiltrated the Sunrise Movement, that environmentalist movement. So the strategy...
I know she's very anti-plastic straws.
Yes. So...
No, I'm serious. She spoke about it in one of her awards.
The strategy of all these jihadist groups is to get you to identify with their cause. Like, they don't want anyone to think about Islam or radical Islam or jihad. So they have to, like, figure out a way to sort of manipulate people on the left. So Hannah is like really active in the Sunrise Movement, that like environmentalist movement. Mm-hmm. So basically they got environmentalists through sort of Soviet propaganda, the idea that like the West is an evil empire and it's all about oil and weapons. Okay. And so they basically think that like Iran is basically that the Middle East was divided up because of oil by colonial powers, and it's all just about oil. And Israel was created as sort of this Western Zionist, like colonial entity for Jews to basically have like a vacation home, you know? And Israel's all about oppressing people in the Middle East and all about like Western imperialism in the Middle East. And so Hamas is actually just sort of a resistance movement to try to get the Palestinian people their land back, because the Jews, the Zionists, stole their land. And so Iran has created an axis of resistance. Like, we have to see it from their perspective to try to get the Palestinians their land back. And it's really just about oil and American imperialism.
Oh my God.
So that's how, if you get these people who care so much about the environment and are against all these oil companies and drilling and stuff, to think that Hamas is doing this because of oil and it's about the economy and it's about these evil, that they're actually just fighting against Western imperialism, then that's how you get them to turn and flip, by getting them to identify with it, when really it's a genocidal Islamist theocracy. Like, it's
but they meet them where they are. It's very
Exactly.
cultish, actually, if you think about it. It's like the dance cult documentary that I watched. Come in for the dancing, and then you become a religious cult.
Yeah,
it's a good one.
So when she gave
The
that
3M.
she gave that speech at the Human Rights Commission.
Yes.
Did you watch it? Where she's
No.
like, and it's almost like she's speaking spoken word poetry in her speech. She's like, my Judaism and my queerness are intertwined. They love to use the word intertwined. And I will speak out against Israel's senseless slaughter of blah, blah, blah. Nothing about the or she did mention the hostages. And I also feel bad about the hostages. But like, as if they're just collateral damage.
Yeah.
Right.
As if Hamas just like, you know, every now and then you slaughter and rape and murder and kidnap people.
You got to do what you got to do.
They're resisting the oil industry.
Oh my God.
Like, it's sick. Imagine this Jewish girl who's up there. Like, they've managed to get a Jewish girl who's desperate for attention. And you're up there like, my Judaism and my queerness are like doing this like spoken word Hamas poetry. Like, it's fucking pathetic. Like, it's so disgusting.
Spoken word.
Like,
oh my God, don't give them a good idea. That's going to be at
their
the
next
coffee
thing.
shop down the street tomorrow night.
And then now she's wearing a triangle. She had this thing where it's like fund abortions, not war. And it's with the red triangle, which is the sign of Hamas.
For Hamas, fund abortions with the hot triangle for
as
Hamas.
If, like, you can get a fucking abortion in Gaza or in Iran or anywhere.
Yeah, they would never allow that.
It is so, like, she's so off base.
The mental gymnastics.
And
that
she's
one
like
must go
getting on talk shows and magazines and like, is Hollywood just controlled by Hamas? Like, what is
I think
this?
so. Hamasi would.
Hamasi would.
Hamasi would.
Literally, it's a Hamasi would.
Yeah.
I mean, the Jews aren't speaking, so might as well Hamas, you know? I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah.
No one else
Well, the
is speaking.
Hamas Jews are speaking.
I know. I know.
The wrong Jews are speaking.
It's really insane. Like, before we know it, we're going to start saying Baruch Hamas Atah. I mean, it's a
I think
horrendous.
that soon, I think that on the college campuses, they will start wearing burqas as like, I control the male gaze. Like, it'll be this thing where they're all like, because already they'll wear scarves and have like, they'll have their midriff out. The girls, the white girls, will wear keffiyehs like as this stylish thing with their midriff out, just sort of walking around like this, like, terrorist chic sort of look.
It's like Forever 21.
With their midriff.
Yes.
Which makes absolutely no sense.
It's this like fetishization of Islam. This fetishization.
It'll be like a bikini and a keffiyeh pattern.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll see. Listen, you never know. This could be the new trend. And
Summer is coming.
But I will say, at some point, we've got to move on to another trend. Like, come on, America. Let's find something else to be obsessed with. Hopefully.
Yeah, I know. I hope that when the war ends, that like this spell will just sort of break. I think if they're going to have to maybe destroy the Islamic Republic and destroy their nuclear capacity.
Can you lead the charge?
I want it more than anything.
You're saving the nation.
Will you take all your IDF friends, go over there, and destroy?
I will. I have hot gay guys to protect in Israel.
We're all for you finding your next lover.
Yeah.
Okay, so Daniel, everyone needs to follow you immediately because you are on tour. You're going on stages everywhere around the world.
Yes. Well, I'm trying to like figure out where to live and what to do. So I like, I don't know. Well, I don't know if I want to live in New York. They're crazy.
Yeah.
I think maybe Florida. I need to be safe and sound.
I could see you in
With
Florida.
good weather. With good weather.
Yeah.
So, okay, where do people...
The Republican gays are in Florida.
Oh, I could see you 100% with a beautiful, handsome Republican Israeli gay.
Clean cut.
Yeah.
Yeah. So where do people find you other than in Florida online?
No, Instagram is my main platform.
That's your best place.
Yeah.
And that's where you do your best work.
Yes.
That's where I love following you.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll put all of your links below, and then we're excited. We're seeing you tomorrow, and we're recording this the day before we're seeing you on stage here at the Laugh Factory in Hollywood.
Yeah, it's gonna be good.
I can't wait. I'm gonna scream.
Yeah.
I'm gonna laugh at all your jokes.
It's gonna be good.
We love you. Thank you so much for
Thank you for
supporting the
coming.
cause, and thank you for supporting the Jews.
I love you. We're all in it together. This is the thing people don't know. Like, if we're going down, we're going down with the Jews.
Aww.
There are Jews for now and forever. Like, you don't want to, like, there's no reason to hate Jews.
We're not going down.
Yeah.
We're not going anywhere.
No, of course not.
Thank you, Daniel.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.